In this video, I'm going to do one full C2 proficiency reading and use of English test. Okay, maybe not a full reading and use of English test, but at least the reading portion of the exam. We will go through each task and I'm going to show you the best tips and strategies so you can save time and, of course, pass the exam. Hi and welcome to Teacher Phil, where I help people like you pass their Cambridge exam. Man, this is going to be quite difficult even for me, and I might actually just embarrass myself in front of all of you guys. But at least I'm not a native speaker, so if anything goes wrong, I can blame it on that. So I'm going through the reading section of reading and use of English, using my own strategies and techniques that I teach in my other video. You should probably check out that video first if you haven't done so yet. My next video will be on the use of English section of C2 Proficiency, so make sure that you follow me on social media to stay updated and in order not to miss that video. To make the whole thing a little bit more realistic, I've chosen tasks that I myself have never seen or done, neither with my students or by myself, so it's something completely unknown to me as well. I've decided to use the book Proficiency Test Builder, published by Macmillan in 2013. I will leave a link to the book in the description for you if you're interested and if you want to have a look. This is not an affiliate link, so I don't earn any money. This is just for you if you want to check it out. But enough talking. If you are ready, I would say we'll go straight to my office and get started. Okay, so welcome to my office. Here we are, and you can already see part one right on your screen. Just a couple of words before we get into it. Of course, if I have to read longer texts, I'm not going to force you to read everything with me. I'm going to skip forward real quick. Of course, you can always pause the video when you feel like you need an extra second to read something or to think about an answer. And you can continue the video at any time. And so, yeah, here with part one, yeah, we can get started straight away. I have never seen this task. I've never looked at it before. So here we are. So the first thing I need to do is to read the text, because that is step one in part one. Also, many people believe that part one is part of use of English in C2 Proficiency. This is actually not true. Part one, together with parts 5, 6, and 7, makes up the reading portion of the test. That is true in B2 First and C1 Advanced as well. Yeah, part one is part of reading and not of use of English. So anyway, in part one, the first step is always to read the text quickly, so you get an idea of the topic and you can also get a first glance at what kind of vocabulary might be missing here in the text. So I will take a minute. You can also read the text quickly and just pause the video. When you are ready, you can continue, and I will see you again in a second. Okay, so here we are again. I've just read the text. Quite interesting, meeting Marvin Gaye, one of the great musicians in history, and this is going to be quite interesting to do. So after reading the text real quick, we can go on to the next step. And that means we look at the first gap and we try to analyze this gap a little bit, which means we look at what's before the gap, what's after the gap, and perhaps we can find something that will help us with choosing the correct answer. So let's have a look here at the text. And this person talks about when he or she first met Marvin Gaye. I had just completed a 2-year project, co-writing the autobiography of Ray Charles, an inspiring collaborator, but an authoritative and often figure. Okay, so we have here authoritative, and we're looking here at the noun figure. So let me underline this real quick, because that's always a useful thing to do. Underline the things that can help you. And so I think here we need to find a word that collocates with figure. So let's have a look at our options. So we have distant, faint, secluded, and far away. So at first glance, I like distant, because a distant figure is someone who is not very friendly and maybe yeah, doesn't communicate that much with other people. So I like this. A faint figure doesn't really exist. I think if something is faint, just means it's not really clear. It's not really like, yeah, it's a little bit distorted. Secluded, I would use that maybe with something that is a little bit isolated, like a secluded beach or something like this. And far away talks about, like, I would say literally about a long distance. So I think here a distant figure, something who is not very communicative. I think that matches authoritative quite well. So I go with A. I'll just put that here in the gap. And I can also here put a box around this so you know which option I choose. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Marvin came on like a brother. Okay, maybe the opposite of Ray Charles. He was warm, witty, and to laugh. Okay, so here I see immediately I want to underline here to laugh because that seems to be part of a phrase. Let's have a look at our options. Prompt to laugh, impulsive to laugh, abrupt to laugh, and quick to laugh. Here I immediately like quick. I think if somebody is quick to laugh, or quick to do anything, just means they often, yeah, they do it quickly. They don't wait very much. So if somebody's quick to laugh, it means you can make them laugh quite easily. I think when you do something promptly, it means more maybe in a work context. When you do something promptly or you reply promptly, that means you do it without waiting for a long time or without a lot of delay. Impulsive, yeah, impulsive to love. I laugh. I don't think I would say this. I think impulsive is more like you do something without thinking first. Like it's just out of a like a desire instead of really thinking about it. And abrupt, no, I wouldn't say that. I think if somebody's abrupt, that means more they might say something quickly and then but not say much else. It's like very cut off in how a person talks. So I think I like quick here. Quick to laugh. Quick to laugh. And again, let me also put a box around this. No, maybe not this color. Let me change it to green. Here we are. Very nice. Okay. Let's move on. Let's go to the next one. He spoke like he sang, in whisper quiet melodies and soft falsettos. His conversation had a lyricism, all of its okay. So here again we have this expression here. We say all of its whatever misses here. And again, when we look at our options, we have all of its type. Never heard that before. All of itself, maybe not. All of its like, I'm not sure, but all of its own, that definitely rings a bell. Yeah. So when we say this, his conversation had a lyricism all of its own, it kind of means it's unique to the way he speaks, yeah, or the way he expresses himself. I think when we talk about a type, maybe you could say his conversation was of a certain type or something like this. Self, I'm not sure, like itself, we would write that in one word, I guess, itself. And then all of its like, so when you use like, maybe the like of, yeah, I don't know. These don't make a lot of sense. I think own is the only one I would consider here. Because that is definitely an expression that we use in English, all of its own, that there's a uniqueness to the way Marvin Gaye spoke. So I would choose D here as well, yeah. Okay, next one. His affectations, British accent, for example, were more than by his disarming sincerity. Okay, so his affectations, which is maybe here considered like a little saying that maybe it's a little bit dishonest, a little bit like when you act, there's some affectation to this, like it's not natural. But then we contrast this with this disarming sincerity. So I think we want to find an expression here or something that shows us that there's a contrast. They were more than by his disarming sincerity. So we have set against. That we can set against something else, but I think we wouldn't use it in this sentence structure. Weighed up. No, I think you would say when you weigh up something, I don't think we use it to compare two things really. You consider something, but you don't compare it with something else. Made up for something or made up for, that is a good one. Settled up with, I think that is more a very specific phrasal verb when you have to pay back some debt. You have to actually give money to someone. So I think in this case, I would go with made up for because that means compensate. Yeah, when you make up for something, for example, if you had an argument with a friend and afterwards you want to make up for it, you might invite your friend for a drink or something like this to compensate for the anger or the anguish that you caused them. So I think here I like my chances with made up for, so I go with option C. I am pretty confident here, I would say. Okay, the next one. We became friends. I felt to watch him work and play up close. Okay, so I guess we became friends. I mean, when you can watch somebody like Marvin Gaye and be close to him, I'm sure that feels like something that not everybody can do. Advantageous, privileged, indulgent, and gainful. Yeah, I think just by meaning, I would probably go here with privileged. It's like you feel honored or you feel maybe thankful for an opportunity. Yeah, you feel privileged that you were able to do something. In this case, to spend time with Marvin Gaye so close, so up close. I think advantageous, you don't feel advantageous. I think we can say something is advantageous when it has a benefit for you. Indulgent, I don't like the meaning here. I think when something is indulgent, maybe it's like spoiling. It's more like if you indulge someone, that means you give them everything they want. I don't know if that's the right meaning. It's not like Marvin Gaye did this on purpose, and gainful, I think we would use more with something like maybe you have a gainful job, so you make enough money from that job. So I think here privileged is the best option. So I go with B. Here it is. Good. Let's continue. So you see, I do need a little bit more time than you might need in your official exam, simply because I give you a lot of explanations here, and I try to be as detailed as possible. So if this takes a little bit longer, of course, I apologize to all my viewers, but I think it's necessary to give you an idea how to approach this kind of task. And in the future tasks, I might skip a little bit forward because things become a little bit more repetitive. But here, I think it makes good sense to explain every answer in detail to give you an idea of what to look for. Okay, then in number 6, I felt privileged to watch him. It soon became clear that, like his music, his personal life was with dramatic contradictions, a combination of charm and chaos. Okay, let's have a look. Inundated, filled, plentiful, and dense. Yeah, so here my first instinct tells me filled with, because I guess it's probably the only one that I would use with the preposition. Yeah, when I saw that preposition, that rang a bell immediately. Yeah. So I guess here filled is probably correct. I would say also the meaning of the other words is a little bit different. Inundated is maybe, it's like you are flooded by something, or you are, a lot is coming at you. Maybe you can say you are inundated, I don't know, like by the requests or by phone calls or something like this. Plentiful, we wouldn't say with. That was plentiful. You can say that something is plentiful, so that there is more than enough of something. That would fit by meaning, I guess, but we can't use it here with that preposition. And dense is more, if you say, for example, a book is dense, It means that there is a lot of content, a lot of information, but also that it's quite complex and maybe difficult to understand or to make sense of it. So I think here filled is the best option, I guess, that I'm happy with that. Obviously, you can also always tell me in the comment section if you disagree with me or if you have any questions, of course, and I'm happy to reply to those. Yeah, if you are not sure why one of the answers is not correct and you want maybe a more detailed explanation, let me know in the comments, and I'm gonna try and help you out. Okay, so let's move on to 7, because he was a hero of mine and because his art was so dazzlingly beautiful. What beautiful language they use here. So self-contained, so accomplished. So, okay, yeah, so we have all these great expressions: dazzlingly beautiful, self-contained, accomplished, slick. So here we need the right adverb to modify slick. Let's have a look. Appreciably, fully, utterly. I would go with utterly here from my first. That's my first thought. I think sorely is more something like, we use it with a negative connotation. Like, I don't know, when, for example, let's say a football team, like the best player is injured, then they would say he was sorely missed in the game, which they lost. Or obviously, if a person passes away, and say he will be sorely missed or she will be sorely missed. So I think this is too negative here. Fully slick, I wouldn't use that. I don't think that's the right collocation here. And appreciably, I think we typically use that with, I mean, it's like considerably or much, but I think typically we would use that with comparatives, maybe like appreciably better or something like this. So I think fully here is the only one that really works. And I'm happy with that one. Sorry, not fully. I mean utterly. Fully doesn't really work here, but utterly has a good meaning here, meaning completely or absolutely or something like this. I guess that is good. So I would use that. And then it took me to realize my hero was drowning. Okay, so yeah, so because he was a hero of mine, it took me to realize. So I would say, without looking at the options, it took me a while, or it took me a bit. And yeah, we do have while here. It took me a phase, a length, of course. Now, I think a phase is more like something that is temporary, like you're going through a certain phase in your life. Length, I wouldn't say it took me a length. You can maybe say a length of time. And a course, I don't know. Maybe we could express it in a different way. Maybe during the course of our time together, I realized that he was drowning. But yeah, it doesn't fit the sentence structure here. So here, I'm pretty sure it's while. I'm pretty confident. Okay. Let me put that here as well. All right, so these are my answers. So let me have a look here at my answer key. Give me 1 second, I'll let you know. So let's see. Number 1A is correct. Number 2, does it say D? Number 3, D. Number 4, C, very nice. Number 5, it says here B. Number 6, B. Number 7, C. And number 8, A. Yay, looks like I got them all right. And of course, I hope my explanations here for part 1 were helpful as well. And I guess you see how we can do this task. Yeah, you read the text once, and then when you look at the different gaps, always try to find different words. Yeah, you can see here the things I've underlined, or in the last one, I could also underline here. It took me a while. Yeah, so often you will find certain words or certain expressions that only become complete and correct with the right word, and we just choose the option that fits that. And obviously your range of vocabulary needs to be really good here. We are working at C2 level now, so there are no more excuses. So yeah, you need to be ready when you do this. So this is part 1. And of course, let me clear out my annotations here and let's move on. And let's jump to part 5. So parts 2, 3, and 4, they belong to use of English, which I will look at in my next video. But because these videos can get quite long, I thought it would be a good idea to separate, as I said earlier in the video. So here, part 5, you can see lots to read, 6 different questions with A, B, C, and D. So this task screams confusion at me whenever I see it. So there are a few things to consider for you before you even get started. First of all, the questions that you have here, they typically follow the order of the text, which is great for you. That means most of the time you have the right number of paragraphs even. Yeah, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs and 6 questions. So I'm almost certain that we will find the answers or one answer in each paragraph, but we'll look at that in a second. The second thing that you should consider here is that in part 5, I actually don't recommend reading the text first. I often tell my students, and you will see this in many of my videos and on my website in my articles, that I always say, read the text before you answer the questions. Part 5 is the one exception where I wouldn't do this, because as I just said, the questions and the answers, they follow the order of the text. So it's not really necessary to understand the whole text, because typically we're looking for something that is contained in each paragraph. So it's not so much about the connection between the paragraphs. So it's not so important to read the whole text first. And the last thing, and that is really strategy that I recommend here, is because there are always 4 different answers, or answer options, I should say. This can become very confusing. So my piece of advice here is to try and focus only on the questions first and try to answer the questions yourself, which means, especially in C2, often you have to look at the whole paragraph, kind of summarize it in your mind, and summarize it with the question in mind. And then you can compare what you found to the answers, and hopefully, of course, find the right answer that matches the information that you found. So we're going to do this, of course, with an example. So I'm going to read just the first paragraph first, because in the question it says here, what does the writer imply about comedians in the first paragraph? So we know we can even just focus on that one. So I'm going to read the first paragraph. Just give me a minute. Again, you can pause the video. You can do the same. And when you're ready, you come back. And then I will tell you what my thoughts are about paragraph number 1. Okay, so here we are. So I've just read the first paragraph. And my initial thoughts here are that the author talks a little bit about what kind of person makes a comedian. And they also talk about kind of the negative connotation of being a comedian. Yeah, it says here, what drives moderately intelligent persons to put themselves up for acceptance or disparagement? So it's like, who would be so crazy to become a comedian? Yeah. In short, yeah, what sort of individual wants to be a comedian? And he talks here about other professions and says that we often have like negative ideas about these, like the absent-minded professor, the venal lawyer, the gloomy detective, the cynical reporter. So he gives them these negative adjectives that might be like a stereotype that we have about these. And then it says, what corny characteristics do we attribute to comedians? So what do we typically associate with being a comedian? Yeah, so here, and then he has like this whole battery of negative adjectives. So I think he says a little bit like being a comedian is something crazy in a sense. So let me have a look at the possible answers now, and let's see if we can find something that reflects what I've just said. It says here, people in certain other professions generally have a better image than them. I would say that is not true, because we just said here he gives other professions also these negative adjectives, so I don't like this answer here. It is possible that they are seen as possessing only negative characteristics. Yeah, maybe that. Because he gives kind of this very negative idea of comedians, right? It is harder to generalize about them than about people in other professions. I don't know if I don't think the author or the writer even mentions that. They often cannot understand why people make negative judgments of them. I mean, he talks here about negative judgment, but it doesn't talk about if they cannot understand that. So I think I like answer B most here. Yeah, I think I like B. I think that's the one that I could clearly identify. So I highlight B here. Yeah, and be happy about it. And yeah, so what you can do, of course, you can always underline certain things in the text when you read. Yeah, I didn't do this here right now, but so the things that jumped out to me was immediately that first question. Yeah. So there are these questions. What does the label suggest? Yeah, and it talks here like about these stereotypes. Yeah, as I said here, I noticed these negative adjectives as well. Yeah, or here, of course, all these negative adjectives that they use to describe comedians. And so that's why I got this image of like that comedians or being a comedian is something kind of negative. So always underline the things that you read. This can always be very helpful, but sometimes you will find that just the general idea of the paragraph can also help you. So going too much into detail might be a hindrance sometimes. But yeah, let's have a look at the second paragraph now. I will do the second one as an example here as well. And then afterwards, I'll go through all the others a little bit faster. But I think you get the idea. So I will read the second paragraph because it says here, what does the writer say about people who wear uniforms in certain 32? And I can already see here's the word uniform. So I guess the second paragraph talks about this. So again, I will take a minute to read the paragraph. You can do the same. You can maybe make some notes for yourself. And when I'm done, I'll give you my thoughts just as we did before. So I'll talk to you in a second. Okay, so I've read the second paragraph here, and it says here, what does the writer say about people who wear uniforms? And I think there were a couple of things that stood out to me. So he says here, he talks about people in uniforms that they prefer like anonymity in life. Yeah, and so they say they surrender to the discipline of a military life. So I guess it's like a little bit, they like discipline, they like routine. Okay, so here they talk the emotional and intellectual cause is easily observed but not easily deflected. So I guess it means a little bit like that this discipline, it's hard for them to change that. So they are stuck in their routine a little bit. It also says here they want to be told what to do. And here again, I'll extend that to here. It also talks again about the safety of the routine. Often behind the disguises of a number here. So yeah. It says here, yeah, they must be very strict with themselves. And here, the mere idea of standing up in front of an audience and demanding attention is abhorrent, so that they definitely don't want to be comedians. So that's what I get from this. So they have a life of routine, a life of discipline. They hide a little bit and they don't want to become comedians. They don't want to be on stage. So I think that's kind of the gist of what I get. So let's have a look at what the options are. They criticize performers for craving attention. I wouldn't say that, no. I think they don't really talk. They don't really criticize others. They just can't see themselves looking for attention. It is unusual for them to break their normal patterns of thoughts. That is definitely something. It talks about the routine, that it's not easily deflected. Yeah, that this discipline is not easily broken, or that this routine isn't easily changed. So that's an option, I think. They are more aware of their inadequacies than others may think. I don't think it really talks about this. No, I don't think so. I didn't find that thing. And the desires they have are never met when they are at work. I also don't think that this is true. I think it says here they want to be told what to do and then be required to do it over and over again. So it's actually, that's what they want. Yeah. So I think their needs or their desires are met. The desires they have are never met. I think they're always met at work. Yeah. So I think, once again, I think I want to go with B here in this example. I think that is the one thing that kind of corresponds with what I found in the paragraph. So here you can see how you can do this. So you read the question, yeah, and you look at what's important in the question. Again, you can underline this. Yeah, so for example, so here we can say apply about comedians, or here people who wear uniforms. In the next question, it talks about shy people, yeah, in the third paragraph. So he says here, he criticized the kind of comedy for its lack of. Here we talk about people at the top of society. And it says here, what does the writer wonder in the last paragraph? Yeah, so these are probably the things we have to find. So what I'm going to do now, just to save all of us a little bit of time, I'm going to read the rest of the text and I'm going to choose my answers. And once I'm done, I'll come back and I will tell you why I chose what I chose. Yeah, so I'll just give the rationale behind my choices, but you won't have to go through every single thing with me again. Okay, so again, of course, you can pause the video, you can look at the other questions. You can also check if you agree or disagree with me on questions 31 and 32. We will check the answers at the end of this task together. So yeah, pause the video if you like. I'll make a jump. I'll see you again in a couple of seconds. All right, so here we are back, and you can see this almost looks like a failed experiment or something like this. But yeah, bear with me. I'm gonna explain to you a little bit what I did here. So you can see I made quite a lot of underlinings, as you should as well. Yeah, I always try to underline the things that give me an idea of the main points in each paragraph, so that I can then compare what I found with the possible answers. So in question 33, where it says the writer says in the third paragraph about shy people, it says, sorry, that shy people may be able to write humorous material, but could not perform it. So I got to this conclusion, especially at the end where he talks about these two people that he knows. It says here, on condition that their real names are not revealed. Yeah, so he says they are funny, but they don't want to be revealed. They don't want to get this kind of recognition there. And I think that is probably the best answer here. Yeah, they are capable of being more humorous than they realize. I think those shy people are aware that they can be funny. They are just shy. Yeah, so they know they can, but then they prefer not to reveal their name, for example. The fear that what they find humorous would not amuse others, I think I also disagree with that, because again, it talks of several examples where people publish their jokes and they do not get the recognition they deserved, even if they're good at comedy. I think here the problem is they don't look for the recognition because they don't want their names to be revealed. So it's not something they look for. So I think they get the recognition, but just not under their real name, for example. So that's why I chose A. I think that's the best option. In 34, that was pretty obvious to me, actually. So he says that, in my opinion, that this kind of comedy that he talks about in the previous paragraph, the comedy of shy people, that it lacks spirit. And he talks here about different things. He says that this kind of comedy that shy people typically write is based on, he says, wordplay, puns, and similar equivoques, but it's never aggressive enough. He says here, if you have no ginger and snap. And he says here, it seems likely that your sense of fun, if you are a shy person, and if you are not familiar with strong emotion, that it will be limited to timidity, to a simple, by timidity to a simple juggling with language. So I think it's pretty obvious here that we're talking about spirit. Yeah, he doesn't say that these are not original or creative things. They are coherent and they are logical, they are smart, but they are maybe a little bit boring, at least in the writer's opinion. So here I'm pretty comfortable with my answer. I think 35 was the one that I struggled with. I settled on C, even though I'm not sure if I'm correct here. So it talks about people at the top of society. And I chose they are unaware of how ridiculous they appear to others. I base that on this sentence here where it says, some of our rulers do make us laugh, but that's not what they're paid to do. So I think it's kind of, they make us laugh, but they don't do it on purpose. It's because it's not what their job is. So I think maybe they are not aware of the fact that we think it's funny what they say or what they do. So that's why I chose C. But as I said, I'm not quite sure with this one. But A, I think I can eliminate A here. It just says that they don't have contempt for the humor of others. It's not really what it says about it. It just says that they have their kind of humor, but they don't look down on others with this. It says they take themselves too seriously to wish to amuse anybody. I don't think so. It says here they have no compulsion to make the hoi polloi, which is like regular people laugh, so they don't care about that too much. So I think I can eliminate A and B. With D, I'm not sure though. It says here, with the constricted comedy of those who live a constricted life, that which amuses them may lack the common touch. I don't know. I think C is better, but I might be wrong here. And then the last one, 36, I chose C here. This one was clearer to me. That was a pretty quick choice for me. I think the writer wonders whether it is inevitable that some people will become comedians. So he talks a lot about kind of this destiny, this calling that some people have. He talks about nurses and nuns. He talks about if someone's a born comedian, or here preferring to believe that their gifts are inescapably driven to expression. So I think these are all good points that highlight this, that for some people, it might be just what they are born to do, So I'm very confident with this one. So these are my answers for part 5. You can, of course, again, compare your answers to mine. Tell me if you agree or disagree, but let me have a look at the answer key. So for 31, I got this one right. Nice. 32, the correct answer is also B. 33, answer is A. I think my reasoning here was also good. 34, I'm pretty sure, this one is correct. Then 35, I actually got that one wrong. See, the correct answer would be D, not C. So I guess there's probably some reasoning there. I chose C. I'm not perfect here, as I said. I'm not a native speaker. I can blame it on that. But I think I had good reason why C is correct. But D seems to be the correct answer here. And then the last one, I'm confident though. C is correct here. So I made one mistake. Nobody's perfect. I guess that's okay. So here again, just a little recap on how to do this. So in part 5, don't read the text first. You don't need to waste your time with this, because as you saw, the questions and the answers, they really go paragraph by paragraph. So you can just jump straight into it. Also focus on the questions only, not on the possible answers first. Read one paragraph, try to answer the question yourself, and then compare what you found and what you've underlined with the possible answers. You saw, worked quite well for me. I got 5 out of 6 correct. And that's probably the most time-saving way, and also the most likely way to get you to where you want to get. So again, I will remove all my drawings here, and we're ready to move on to part 6. Here we are. And part 6 is one of those parts that students typically hate, really down to the bones, where you need to complete this text and you have to fill in the gaps with whole paragraphs that are missing. This is very, very similar to part 7, I believe it is. I'm confusing things here. I believe it's part 7 in C1 Advanced, and also part 6 in B2 First. But of course, here also in B1, there's a similar task. Again, it escapes me which part it is. Might be part 5 in B1 preliminary. But yeah, here in C2 proficiency, it is part 6. And of course, from level to level, it becomes more and more difficult. So here you have to fill in whole paragraphs. And there are always a couple of things that you can do. Even before you get started filling in the paragraphs or matching them. The first step is always, in this case, to read the text. In part 6, I would definitely recommend doing it. And also, while you're reading, it can be a good idea to leave a short note on the side just to help yourself so you know what each part that comes before or after a gap talks about. Knowing these things can be extremely helpful when you want to match the paragraphs, because if a paragraph fits nicely between two, or if a paragraph fits in the gap, and in terms of what it talks about, it fits nicely between two of the other paragraphs, that's already half of what you need. So for example, let's get started with the very first one. It says here, Detective Inspector Luke Sennett was a happy man. He had an interesting job, no pressing financial worries, 2 healthy, lively children, and perhaps best of all, a wife who was all that any man could wish for. There we go. It's called husband and wife. So yeah, so here we go. So we could basically see, I guess in the first paragraph, I'll just write that on the side, maybe above. I don't have a lot of space here on the side. Maybe we call this the happy life. I'll make this also a bit smaller. Here we go. Just write this above here, the happy life. Seems like he's happy with everything he's got. Reaching for his pipe, he tapped it out, scraped it, inspected it, blew through, then filled it with loving care. It's 9 o'clock. Do you want the news? I don't think so. I guess this is like a continuation of this. These two fit very nicely together. So I'll do this like this just for myself, so I remember this. I think these two, they are basically like a unit. And that means that I guess the paragraph that goes in here needs to fit this unit, yeah, about the happy life. And we will see in a second if there's a paragraph that works. So I will now, not to waste your time too much, I will do this for myself and skip forward a little bit, yeah, so you don't have to follow me. But again, you can pause the video, you can do it yourself. You can try to read the other paragraphs, make a note, and see when I come back if you wrote the same thing as me or if you have the same ideas. So I'll come back in a second and you will see my ideas that I put down. Okay, so here we are. And as you can see, I've made a note, or I basically gave a heading to each paragraph here. You might have written the same things or something slightly different. Oh, there's actually, I see that I've made a mistake here. There we go. And so, yeah, I think that everything looks happy at the beginning, but then Jane gets a little bit nervous here. And then here is the problem. So it takes another paragraph that we have to fill in here before Jane talks about the problem. And because of what they say here, Luke is nervous. So something that they talk about here and that comes then before makes him nervous. But also what I've noticed, they don't say anything here, but here they do. So the conversation continues. So maybe they talk here or maybe not, we will see. In 41, they continue the conversation in 42. That's why I just wrote the conversation continues and continues. And then in the end here, at the end of the text, we have Luke's final thoughts. So that's the first thing you should do. This took me maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Reading quickly, just make some notes, and you can move on to the next step, which is looking at the paragraphs. Of course, in exams like B1 preliminary or B2 first, you only have to fill in sentences, which makes it a lot easier because you can look for very specific words that might link your sentence to a gap. In C1 Advanced and here in C2 Proficiency, we have to fill in whole paragraphs. So it is more important to see how the paragraph fits in the flow of the whole text. And often we can just look at this by looking at the topic as well, just as we did with the paragraphs here. So that can be an option. Or if you want to save a little bit of time, you can also just read the sentences or the paragraphs one by one and just compare if they would fit in somewhere in terms of the topic that they talk about. Sometimes as well, we can make links to something that happens before or after this paragraph. There might be certain words that stick out to us or that pop out and that we can see, or where we can see, here we have a clear connection to something that has been said before or something that is said after the gap. And so, yeah, let's have a look. And let's look at these paragraphs before we get into it. So obviously, as you might know, yeah, we have 7 gaps, but 8 paragraphs. So there's always one extra paragraph. But what you can do is you can look at this and you can already think about where would this paragraph possibly fit. So when we say here, let's have a look at the first one. Not very inspiring, he thought guiltily, assessing the situation in the light of Jones' projected foray into the world of work. I meant it, you know. You go ahead and make inquiries, find out the sort of things you enjoy. But the false heartiness in his tone did not deceive, and she bit her lip, glanced away from him. So this would definitely be already part of the conversation here. So I guess perhaps in 40, 41, 42 perhaps. So what I like to do is I just write these possible gaps at the end of the paragraph, so I already can filter it down a little bit. And let's have a look at the next one as well. We can do this together for A and B. So you see another example. So nonsense, he said. We've always said you would when the children were old enough. Okay, so I can already see here because I remember Jane talking about here, when Ben starts school, I'll go back to work. So they're talking here about children. Here it talks about the children. So this might be an option perhaps for 40. Anyway, I thought you'd more or less made up your mind to do an art course. So here at the beginning, she says, no, I did consider it at one time. So this could link B to that. So I would guess B is also an option for 40 or 41, I might think. So you can see, yeah, you can quickly glance at it without making too many decisions and just narrow it down to some of the gaps that might be possible. So that's how I would go about this. Also, if you find something, yeah, that is clearly connected, like I said here, when the children were old enough, you can underline that as well, because that might help you make your decision too. So as we did earlier, I will go through the other paragraphs and do the same thing. I invite you to do the same on your own. And when you're ready, or pause the video, yeah, go through it by yourself. And when you're ready, continue the video and you will see what I'm thinking about these different, or what I think about these different paragraphs. So again, pause the video and I'll see you in a second. Okay, so we're back. And you can see here that I went through the different paragraphs and I made my annotations, things that I believe can link to the text, and also the gaps that where I believe these paragraphs might fit. So I've already looked a little bit at the text, not in too much detail, but I think just from what the different paragraphs talk about, there are probably certain gaps that I can exclude, that I can eliminate from even considering. So there are a few sentences where I am quite sure where they might go. And you can see here, for example, paragraph F, the only gap where I really see that one go is 37, the first gap. And when I look at my other sentences, there's only one other paragraph here, C, where I even consider 37. So let's have a look at these two and we can make a decision. So now we look at the gaps. Now we look at exactly what comes before and after, and we see what fits best. Yeah, so I think, because I got intrigued here where it says she went back to her book and he picked up the newspaper. So if it says here she went back to her book, I don't think that it fits in 37 really, now that I look at it, because it doesn't talk about her book yet in that very first paragraph. Here, they talk about if they want to watch the news, and both of them say, no, it's okay. So perhaps she was already reading. Then, like, Joan, what's her name, Jane? No, Joan. She says, do you want the news? And he says, no. She says, no. And so it would make sense to say she went back to her book. So I think I'm quite comfortable with putting C in gap 38, because also when it continues, he says, or it says here that Luke realized that Joan was unusually restless, that her eyes were unfocused. And then it continues here. Now she fidgeted, crossed and recrossed her legs, fiddled in her hair. So these are like nervous movements. So I think I like C in 38, and I think I would like F in 37. It says here, so it was that he was blissfully unaware of the nasty little shock that we'll get because she gets nervous, there's a problem. So I'm quite confident to put C in gap 37. I'll make this one a bit bigger though. There we go. And to put, sorry, I'm mixing this up. I want to put C in 38 and I want to put F in 37. I think I'm comfortable with this. So that means for me as well, one thing that I would always do is that you just, once you're done, just cross out the paragraphs that you've already used. So don't even second guess yourself. Yeah, be happy with your choices. And that means you have to consider fewer paragraphs for the next few gaps. Okay, so I think I'm happy with these. Yeah, also one other paragraph that I can only associate with one gap here is paragraph H, which I would only put in 39. Yeah, because at the end of this this paragraph between 38 and 39, yeah, so he sees she's nervous. He asks her, is the book not good? She goes, no, it's all right, yeah. And he says, what's the matter? Because he notices that she's nervous. She looks at him but doesn't say anything, and she says, come on, love, out with it. Yeah, so it's a tense situation. But it says here, to his surprise, she still did not respond. So I think that works very well. And Joan, she actually says, I've a nasty feeling you aren't going to like what I'm trying to pluck up the courage to say. Then he continues and says, oh, so he's wary. He knows something is coming. So I would be shocked if H is not the correct answer here. So I will take the liberty. I will take the freedom. I'll put it in there and I will cross this out. I am confident. So I think just like that, we've already filled our first 3 gaps. I might be on the completely wrong track here, but I am confident with these paragraphs here. So we continue now. There's another paragraph, paragraph D, that I would only put in the last one. Yeah. So because in that conversation, here Luke says, so you haven't gone into it yet. So he asks Joan if she hasn't looked at going to work, or if she hasn't looked for jobs or something like this. And then she says, I wanted to speak to you about it first. So again, that fits perfectly. And here at the end, I think it's very nice because they connect the language. So it says, I knew, of course, that the time would come sooner or later. So here we have later, and then it says very much later, he told himself. So I think this just fits too nicely. And again, I think I'm confident enough to put D in here. I don't see it going in any other paragraph, and it just fits so beautifully that I want to keep it. So now for the next few gaps, yeah, we only have a couple more paragraphs left to choose from. So if you're already sure about a paragraph and you cross it out, you can see that suddenly we have only 4 paragraphs, A, B, E, and G, for the last 3 gaps. So it becomes faster and faster, and you can make your decisions more and more quickly. So let's look. So because you can see here that for gap 40, I have different options here. I would eliminate E. Oh yeah, I didn't notice. I actually would put E only in gap 42. Let me see why. Why did I think that? Oh yeah, I remember, because so Joan asks a question here. She says, "Oh dear, does that sound horribly priggish?" And he gives an answer. To be honest, yes. And then he asks a question. She asks a question again. "You don't think I'm being stupid?" And then here, there's the next answer. "Not in the least." Yeah, so we have question, answer, question, answer. So I think that works very well. In the other possible paragraphs, and I only thought A would also work here, because in A there is not even any direct speech, which doesn't really make sense, because here they are talking to each other. So again, I think for all of these reasons, I am confident about E, that this can go in the gap, and I will cross it out. Okay, so we've even boiled it down now to 3 paragraphs for the remaining 2 gaps. So let's see what we need to do here. So gap 40. Let's have a look. So in gap 40, here Joan says at the end of the paragraph, so she says what she wants to do, and she says, "I knew you wouldn't like it." He says, "Don't be silly, the idea, la la la." So he tries to kind of say, "Oh no, it's okay, it's okay." But then she says, "You're dead against it, really, aren't you? I can tell." And I think I like here either B, where he says nonsense, so he kind of pushes it back against, or I like as well where it says, "And she was right, of course, he was." And I think because of this is where it fits quite nicely. So I think B and G are okay. I don't think A is an option here. So I think B, it's between B or G. It's like a response or reacting to this last statement of Joan. So B is also nice, because it says when the children were old enough. So I think that refers back to here when Ben starts school. So I like that as well. But what I also like is here where it talks about here, everything was geared to Thanet's convenience. So the life was perfect with his wife not working, and she had never complained. And then it says, now in a flash, he saw all of that changing. Uncomfortable adjustments would have to be made. There would be inconvenience, irritation, arguments. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure between B and G here. I'll put them in both for now. B or G. I don't think A is the right option here. But let's see. Let's look at 41 as well. No, he didn't like it at all. Yeah, he wasn't happy. Nonsense, he said, if we use B. Yeah, I think G is not an option here. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Because he already says he didn't like it at all, so we wouldn't have to repeat this. So I think G is not an option for 41. Not very inspiring, he thought. I think A doesn't make sense here either. I think A is the one that we don't even need. Like I really like B and G in these two. I would say A, out. And I do believe, I think I like B in 41 a little bit more, because yeah, I think we get more of the thoughts first, and then it continues the conversation like in B. So I think I will decide here and go for G and B in 41. I think I like that more. Yeah, because G and the following paragraph, they kind of give Luke's thoughts, and then B continues the conversation. I think I like that. All right, so I think I will stick with these answers. You can see, again, my the whiteboard here looks pretty crazy. Yeah, it looks like in one of these movies where somebody puts up a map of the serial killer with all the yarn that they connect all the clues. But yeah, this is what you can do in your exam. Yeah, use your pencil, underline, cross out, make adjustments. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And the more information you can eliminate, the easier it becomes for you. Yeah, so basically here, trying to boil down your paragraphs or boil down the options for each paragraph can already help you by underlining some of the important information that can link. And then, as you could see, once I decided, or when I had to decide, I was quite certain about many of my paragraphs, but we still have to check if what I did was actually right. So let me look at my answer key here. Where is it? Okay, so first answer, correct. F is the right one here. The next one is C, very good. Then we have H. Next one is G, also nice, good. I got them in the, yes, B. Okay, I got this one right. With the rest, I feel quite confident. Yes, E and D. So I got all my answers correct. So make your life easier. Read the text. Make a note for each paragraph. Yeah, so you know what the different kind of milestones or the different main changes are in the storyline. And then go to the paragraphs and see where, in which of the gaps you might put the paragraphs. Yeah, eliminate some of the options for yourself. And then it makes it so much easier to put them in there. So this time I didn't make any mistakes. Very proud of myself. And we only have one more task to do. So let's jump over to part 7. And here we are. Here it is. Part 7 right there for you. And part 7 is, again, a part where you have to read quite a lot. You get a text that is broken up into several parts. Or sometimes you get different parts that talk about the same topic or something like this. But there are always different parts. In this case, we actually have 6 different parts from A to F. And you also get 10 questions, which you can see here on the left, with the text. And of course, you need to find the section that answers these questions. Or in this case, it says in which section are the following things mentioned. So you have to find the section where these different things are mentioned. At the beginning, we can read here, you're going to read an extract from an article about archaeological discoveries in a cave in the south of Britain. Okay, I can think of more interesting topics, but you might be into this kind of stuff, so you might find this more interesting. And so step 1 is always to look at the questions here. And you should look at the questions and possibly underline important words. It's not always necessary to do this. You can see here that the questions or the different things are not that wordy, so you might not have to underline all that much. For example, when it says here, a surprise about the location of the findings, we could, of course, underline surprise and location, things like this here, but it's not always necessary. I do recommend it though. I do recommend it to underline. So I will do this for the other questions as well. Again, pause the video, make your own notes. Yeah, see which words or parts of the questions you would underline. I will see you in a second. Okay, so here we're back, and you can see that I've actually underlined quite a lot in most of the questions. As I said, it's not always necessary to even underline things if basically all the information is important. But here we are. So this is still what I recommend doing. Look at the questions first and underline the most important pieces of information. So the next thing, and if you've watched some of my other videos on C2 Proficiency, especially my video on reading and use of English, which I highly recommend watching, you know that in this task, there is a specific strategy that you can follow, which is that you go paragraph by paragraph or part by part. So we would start here with part A or section A, and we read and we see which of these things are mentioned in A. After that, we move on to B, do the same thing. Yeah, this way, we only have to read each part a couple of times. Yeah, and we can possibly save a lot of time. Also, the further you get, the more of these questions you can eliminate because you already have the answers, and it will save you even more time. So let's get started with A. Again, I will do this as an example, maybe the first 2 paragraphs. And once we're done with that and you see how this goes, I will jump forward again with the other paragraphs. But let's have a look at A. So it says that the entrance to the cave was narrow and no more than 1.50 meters high. One person could enter. Okay. Okay. So it gives a description of the cave here a little bit. It talks about the people and also a coast guard. Okay. A man determined to discover an ancient Roman temple, a young Roman Catholic priest with an interest in fossil. Okay, so maybe the people and why they are there. And a little bit more of an expression or an explanation of what the cave looks like. So I think those are the two main points, right? It gives us, let me underline this a little bit. So it talks about here, about a little bit information about the cave. Same thing here. And then it also, and I'll put this in a different color. Here it talks a little bit about the people. So we have these two main points, I guess. So let me have a look at the answers now, and let's see if anything talks about, let's start if there's a question that talks about the cave itself. Present, oh no, not the presence, okay. Oh yeah, here, the physical appearance of the cave, the last one. I guess that's probably, we can tentatively put A in here. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then the people. Does it talk about the people? Subjects that people previously, no, not really. The different aims of people investigating the cave. I think that makes sense. Because they talk about here, the man wanted to discover a Roman temple. This priest has interest in fossils. So I think we could use that as well, yeah? So let me make this in the same color. So that would be 50. So I think I would be happy with these two for part A. Yeah. Okay. So I like that. I like that. Yeah, let's have a look at B and let's see what we can find out here. Breaking off from the rest of the party. Okay. Okay. So Father McEnery, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce this. If there are any Scottish viewers, maybe they can help me out. McEnery, I'm not sure how to pronounce this. McInnery, not exactly sure, but yeah. So he goes into the cave, and he sees that somebody was there before him, as it seems. And then he finds this these fossil teeth. But he says, I shrank back. So when he finds it, he's like amazed by it. But he says, keeping my good fortune secret. So he didn't tell anyone, fearing that amidst the press and avidity of the party. Okay, he didn't want it to get damaged, so he didn't tell anyone. Okay, so I think here we have probably a couple of good points here. So I think, so it says here that he went in there and he realized somebody had been there before him. Then we could also say that he found here these fossils. Maybe here, yeah. And then I think the last part that we get here is a little bit about him being a bit anxious that he didn't want to tell anyone. So here we have these, I guess, 3 points that we can distinguish, and we can use those perhaps again to find possible answers. So let's have a look. Surprised about the location. He wasn't surprised by the location. He was only surprised that he found them. He didn't really talk about the significance of the cave. The danger of drawing attention. Yeah, that makes sense. He said here he didn't want them to get damaged. So that is definitely one thing that we could put here. Maybe B. Okay. Subjects that had no information. No. The reaction, what something in the cave indicated. Maybe that's no, not really. He doesn't say that now. A revised assessment, no. Different aims of people, we already have this. That there's proving of a theory. No. A sign of previous, yeah. That a sign of previous activities, as it had already been disturbed. So I would add that as well. I think that is a pretty certain thing here. So I'm very happy with these two paragraphs, yeah. A, B, A, B. So also one thing you can do, I feel quite confident about my answers here. So you can immediately also cross them out when you feel confident enough. I don't want yellow, I would like red, please. So I think you can just cross out the ones that you already have, so you don't have to worry about them anymore. And again, the more information we can reduce, the better for us. Yeah? So now for the next 4 paragraphs, we already know that we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions left. So you can see how to do this. And so again, I will do the rest and skip forward so you don't have to follow me through the whole process, and we can save a little bit of time. And then when we come back, I will give you again my reasoning and my rationale for my answers before we check them, okay? So you can pause the video one last time, and you can do this by yourself. And let's see how you go. And I will see you again in a moment. Okay, so I'm back here with my answers. You can see them on the left. And I've also highlighted the parts in the text in the same colors. So let me go through them real quick. So in C, I believe there's only, because the whole paragraph only talks about one topic here really, that it says here that the cave, the remains found in the cave are rewriting human prehistory. Let me also remove my red lines here so we can see the questions again. There we go. That is better. So yeah, so it says here, the revised assessment of something found in the cave. So I think as well that they, because of the things that they found, they say a human jaw found in the cave, that it's 7,000 years older than it was thought. So I think, yeah, this is this revised what we thought about how old we as a human species were. So I think in C, this is the only paragraph. Then for D, I chose, I found 2 answers, 47 as well as 44 here. So here in the first half of the paragraph, it really talks about these, it says here, science knew nothing about humanity's origins. Yeah. But then that the priest he unearthed the bones of extinct and exotic creatures, among some elephants, rhinos, saber-toothed tigers, and so on. Yeah. So people learned a lot about things that they didn't really know about. Yeah. They had no information about this. So I think that's why 47 is good. And also, it says here, society as a whole and science were barely coming to grips with the idea that animals, which now exist only in tropical countries, could once have tramped over the dales in northern England. So they basically were surprised by the location of these findings. Yeah? So I think that works well. Then E, again, it's a shorter paragraph, so there's also just one answer that I found. I think it answers 48, because he says here that he was electrified. He was enthused by this momentous discovery. So it illustrates his reaction to what he found in the cave. And then the last 2 questions that I answered with F were 45 as well as 51. Here we have what answers 51. Yeah, the disproving of a theory. Here it talks about that there was the belief that our planet was just 6,000 years old, and it was fatally undermined by the geologists in this cave, which means they disproved this theory. They killed this theory almost. And question 45, the present and possible future significance. I mean, when I read this question, I thought this might come at the end of the text, and so it is, where they talk about that it may again revolutionize our understanding of our origins. So it talks about that it is one of the most important archaeological and paleontological sites in Britain. What a word. That in the present it's super important, and also in the future that it will be important again. So these are my answers. Of course, we have to check them. Do you have the same? Let's have a look. So let me go to my answer key right there. Okay, so the first answer, D, is correct. We have then F, B, D, E, C, A, F, B, and A. Yay! Okay, so I got all the answers correct. Once again, using my own tips and strategies. First, we look at the questions. Yeah, we underline the most important things in the questions. Then we go paragraph by paragraph. Yeah, we underline the important things. We can look at how many different topics is a paragraph talking about, and then we compare them to the questions and the answers that we can find. Like here in paragraph A, I found 2 answers. I cross out the questions immediately. I don't want to worry about them anymore. I don't want them to be in my field of sight anymore to confuse me. Then the same, I moved on to B. I found 3 different topic points kind of, but I only found 2 answers here, 46 and 52. That happens as well. Yeah, we have to be prepared for that. And so I moved on. I did the same thing with the other paragraphs and got through this quite quickly. Yeah, and I'm sure you can do so as well. So yeah, here we are. This is the end of C2 proficiency reading. As I said, I will continue in my next video with parts 2, 3, and 4, i.e. use of English. But I hope that this already gave you a good idea of how these different tasks work, how you can go through them, how you can use these tips and strategies that I talk about in my other articles and videos, how you can take them and use them in practice. So I would say we'll go back to my living room to finish the video, and I will see you in my office probably in the next video. Thank you for watching the video until the end. I hope you feel a little bit more confident now using my tips and strategies in the reading section of C2 Proficiency. Of course, make sure you watch out for the second part in my next video, where I will go through the use of English section of the exam paper. If you want, I can also be your teacher. I offer online classes and writing feedback, and also make sure to follow me on my other social media channels to stay up to date and to get even more content. All the links are of course in the description box below, and I see you in the next video.